not the job of aesthetics to tell you which artworks are good and which ones are bad, nor is it the job of aesthetics to tell you what experiences are worth having, Chopin in the street or Chopin in the concert hall. If an experience is worth having for you, it thereby becomes a potential subject of aesthetics. You can get your aesthetic kicks where you find them. Aesthetics is not a field guide that tells you which experiences are allowed and which are not. It is not a map that helps you find them either. Aesthetics is a way of analyzing what it means to have these experiences. Aesthetics is, and should be, completely non-judgmental. Here is an evocative example. Fernand Léger, 1881 to 1955, the French painter, describes how he and his friend observed a tailor's shop owner arranging 17 waistcoats with corresponding cufflinks and neckties in the display window. The tailor spent 11 minutes on each waistcoat. He moved it to the left by a couple of millimeters, then went outside in front of the shop to take a look, then went back in, moved it to the right a bit, and so on. He was so absorbed that he didn't even notice that Léger and his friend were watching him. Léger was left somewhat humiliated, pondering how few painters take as much aesthetic interest in their work as this old tailor, and surely even fewer museum-goers. Léger's point, and also the guiding principle of this book, is that the tailor's experience is as worthy of being called aesthetic as any museum-goers admiring Léger's paintings. Thinking about aesthetics in this inclusive way opens up new ways of understanding old questions about the social aspect of our aesthetic engagements and the importance of aesthetic values for our own self. It also makes it possible to think about art and aesthetics in a genuinely global manner that does not presuppose the primacy of the West. Aesthetics or philosophy of art. Aesthetics is not the same as philosophy of art. Philosophy of art is about art. Aesthetics is about many things, including art. But it is also about our experience of breathtaking landscapes or the pattern of shadows on the wall opposite your office. This book is about aesthetics. As a result, it is both broader and narrower in scope than a book about philosophy of art would be. Philosophy of art talks about a wide variety of philosophical questions concerning art, metaphysical, linguistic, political, ethical questions. I will not touch most of these questions. There will be no talk of the definition of art, for example, of how artworks are different from all the other objects in the world. Barnett Newman, 1905–70, the American abstract painter, famously said that aesthetics is as irrelevant for artists as ornithology is for birds. It should be clear that it is philosophy of art that would be the equivalent of ornithology in this blatant provocation, and not aesthetics. It is philosophy of art that is in the business of categorizing artworks and mulling over differences between different species or genres, not aesthetics. So Newman's quip is really about philosophy of art, not aesthetics. Aesthetics, the study of the very experiences artists are working with and are trying to evoke, is very relevant to each and every artist. But of course, artworks can trigger all kinds of experiences, and aesthetics does not even talk about all of these. I'm sure an art thief has some kind of experience of the artwork she steals, but this is unlikely to be the kind of experience this book is about. Or imagine that I promise to give you a lot of money if you run through the entire Metropolitan Museum of Art and count how many of the paintings are signed. I'm sure you could do it, but this does not exactly put you in an aesthetic state of mind, however broadly one understands that. We engage aesthetically with artworks, but we engage with artworks in all kinds of other ways as well, and there are many other things we aesthetically engage with. Throughout the book, I use aesthetic experience and aesthetic engagement more or less interchangeably, acknowledging that aesthetic engagement is something we do, and aesthetic experience is what we feel while we are engaging aesthetically. Art and aesthetics come apart, but this does not mean that we should ignore the connection altogether. Many of our aesthetically valuable moments come from engaging with art. In other words, art is an important object of aesthetics, but it is by no means privileged. According to an influential strand in Western aesthetics, our aesthetic engagement with art, actually with high art, is just completely different from our aesthetic engagement with anything else. Not only does this line of thought undersell aesthetics in as much as it